particularly in this course and your work. So as I started saying there, again, that framework that I have up there, starting with the iceberg and then theory U, then in design thinking, again, are really the core to the leadership in this program, the core concepts. And again, they are there to give you a different lens to think about your own current realities. And then to think about those realities in relationship to your developing leadership. And what I'm really hoping will come out of this, that some of you, as you think about your dissertations or what problems or issues you really want to develop in your dissertation, that you will choose to look at leadership function within organizations. That's a good way of thinking about this, because again, the program is designed really to nurture the development of your leadership and become transformational leaderships within whatever organization you're working in. So George, particularly, I think about you, in relationship to your program is really, I'm gathering, is designed to think about how to create entrepreneurs for the future. And that is a critical component. And then when you think about what you read in Necessary, or not Necessary Revolution, but in the second machine age, that's the way in which things are going. And if you really look at the data that's out there in terms of automation and innovation, that really is presenting a major challenge for us as human beings, and then as educators, particularly how we will nurture the types of learning environments that are going to be necessary for our children to be able to function sustainably in this emerging world that's around us. So that, again, is, as you look at those three components, I think it's important for you to think about. And then as we look at really what this 10-week was all about, it's really to get you to work in teams and begin to think about new types of learning environments, and to really look at possible applications of what you learned in 800, in 801, 802. And I should change that, not to ORG 625, because that's what it used to be, but to EDUC 845. And then also what you learned in, I believe, 804, which was the evaluation course. So that as you think about leadership from the traditional sense, and if you remember in 845, in the Gallos book, you went through all of the readings of the gurus that were out there, and what their thinking is, whether it be Deming or Peter Drucker or Warren Bennis or any of those people, and then begin to kind of, integrate that into your own source. Now, the question then becomes, how does this creativity and the idea of innovation impact the development of leadership, and how do you create those? So the Puccio book really is sort of the field book that you can use going forward in thinking about creating creative environments within your organization. So again, I just wanted to make sure that you understand that sequence we're going through, because quite frankly, this is the last leadership course you're going to have in a leadership program, because everything else now you're going to be moving into will be writing courses, and will be moving into any of the concentrations that you're taking, which a lot of times those concentrations are focused on content within your concentration, not on the leadership with component of that. And you'll be spending a lot of time in your research courses moving forward as you prepare for your dissertation. So that's basically what I wanted to think about. And so I'm going to raise a series of questions that I'd like you to just respond to. And starting out from this process, and what I've been saying here, as you think about your design, and I did look at part of it on YouTube, and we'll continue to look at it, and then I'll give you feedback collectively as a team. But as you think about that, and yours was a Freedom Academy, I believe.
Yeah.
And so as you look at that, what did you learn from the content that came out of these other courses, and it's not 625, but 845, as you developed your design? So I'd just like you to kind of give me some feedback on how they influenced you or what as you went through the process.
Well, I'll go ahead and start. From 800, 801, and 845, what I'm thinking is that all the education that we're doing now is not preparing our students for what the future is going to be. Like when we start reading about the second machine age, saying that our jobs are being taken by robots, and then when we talk about Senji and 800, and he's saying that industrial revolution bubble is going to burst, we need to prepare our students for what's to come. And so when we start doing our design, it's pretty much how do we prepare our students for that type of future. So that's the big thing that I'm looking at.
Okay.
Yeah, for me, 845 was probably one of the bigger, I'll call it noticeable influencers and what I went through, just because if I look at this project, our group we were on the right side of the U, really almost from the inception. I can't even think of moments where we were somehow stuck in downloading or more of a traditional thought process. And obviously knowing more about the U gives you a sense of awareness of what all that means. And what it did for me, obviously, was, and I don't think this was a conscious thing, it was more subconscious, where it got me thinking, it just got me continuing on this process of what can be versus what currently is. And which is very interesting. And if you look at 800 with collaboration and working in teams and well-intentioned, but didn't really look at what it would take to implement. So going one step further, and what 802 or 801 did was it gave it more depth, it gave it more dimension in aligning a lot of these thought processes. Like for example, taking each of the respective areas that we had in our academy. I used to call this thing simplifying the complex, which was the way I used to handle things in just dealing with any type of leadership challenges I had. And then kind of find out Fullen talks about simplexity of a way of dealing with how do you break things down to smaller pieces, but never losing focus of the greater purpose of what this is. And the greater purpose obviously isn't any of the six of us. It was more, we were looking at students, we were looking at sustainable individuals, and we did that with passion, which was very exciting. But it all came together in this project. I don't know, I mean, I teach a lot of different types of courses, and I'll tell you, I'm extremely impressed with how aligned everything was, and the result of how our team really came together to do something that I think is what the future should look like, what can really be. Obviously, implementation is going to be the fun part, and that's our leadership skills, but we want to get there.
Okay.
Yeah. From my own observation, the 800 was able to allow us to see systems, a kind of holistic perspective, a broad view of seeing the whole, and also it helped us to have a kind of a shifting from a scientific mindset, which is analysis, to a creative mindset that sees synthesis and integration and seeing the whole when we are leading change. So we're able to change our mental model was really changed. The structure of the status quo, and the process, it helps us to be able to see clearly how we can change structures and change processes so that they will align with the entire system, a kind of systemic view of challenges and problems. So basically, we have a change of mindset from scientific mindset to a creative mindset. Then for 805, it brought a kind of a transformation of the leader himself, the change agent. So he's able to transform the leader. We're able to discover our authentic self, and we're able to know what is our passion or calling in life, and that will actually stimulate our creativity. Then for 801, it really enhanced our design and creativity, creative thinking. So it's really it's really transformational. So those 800, 845,
Okay.
and 801. Yeah.
Good. Thank you.
I have to agree with George and Israel. I think our process in this whole implementation of our project was very subconscious. What we pulled from 801 all the way to this course with adaptive leadership, I think there was a global aspect. Israel was in, I think, Nigeria at one point, and Andrew's in China. So I think we worked very well together, and we pulled from every aspect of what we've learned so far. And not only did we use that to work together, but we also used that in our project. We were able to let go of previous mental models, as Israel also noted, and I think so did George. And I think that that's really important that we were able to let go. And again, piggybacking on Otto Scharmer's Theory U, we used our hearts, and we were very passionate about every aspect of the project, and even the different programs that we put together for the program. And we were all equally excited with the things that we were able to come up with for the project.
Yeah, and I do want to say, just to comment on that, what I've watched on the YouTube, you see that in the photos and the pics that you used to express the ideas during the narration. And I think that came across pretty strong as I was watching that. Because to me, pics are very important. As they always say, a picture's worth 1,000 words, and I think a lot of the pics that you had there tied into your narration was very good.
If I can just expand on that, what's interesting is that kind of finding pictures was happened because of the online environment, because we weren't all together. I think if we were all together, we would work with some other sort of manipulative or something. But since we were in a virtual environment, the only way we could visually communicate was, to try to, instead of drawing pictures and showing them to each other, we would just Google image a term and then look through, and together we could share a screen and all we'd go through. And that was a real breakthrough moment, I think, for our team, because the pictures say so much. We would all be like, yes, that, and then we'd all know we were all talking about the same thing. We have that on tape. Do we record that Zoom meeting? Yeah,
we did record it. And honestly, at times we weren't all able to meet, but I think it was Adam, Benita, and myself, and we were like little kids in a candy store looking at the pictures, and we were just so excited.
Yeah, and I'm really glad to hear that, because one of the things I struggle with in relationship to this course is that in design thinking, one of the critical components to prototyping is thinking with your hands. Mm-hmm. So when I teach this in a blended model, I have people playing with manipulatives, and they create models where, and I'm really glad you said that, because that's helping me to think about that, and you guys will help future classes to understand that, because I really feel that comment about what it did to you collectively, and using pictures, working in a virtual environment, really stimulated that creativity in terms of the team, and that's very good feedback to me.
Well, I think it's important that, given the fact that we are online, to give this 3 dimensions, right, was really something that I personally found it was a struggle. But as I was putting together some of my narrative, as we were going through, I don't know who pulled out the video on the building, but what a physical space could look like.
Mm.
That narrative then saw the physical space, and then the physical space redefined the narrative.
Mhm.
And then, but still, it wasn't deep enough until you had the full montage of pictures as you're going through this journey through the Freedom Academy, that you can put yourself right in that situation and feel what a day was like. It was unbelievable. And I agree with that. If we were face to face on this, it would have been the effort would be different, because it would be checking the box more than how do we give this depth in a virtual setting.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Very different.
Well, yeah, and one picture I liked that you had there was the building with the windows.
Yeah.
ABCs.
That was the number one photo that we
Yeah.
That was the
loved.
number one photo.
Yeah, that was cool.
You know what else defined our physical space? The actual name of our academy.
Yes.
The fact that our kids are able to just be free instead of, again, my token word, jail, instead of being in these jail cells of classrooms. That's where that all came from. And I think that that's really important to note as well.
I mean, just for me, I just wanted to add, I think for me, it kind of just flowed very well, right? From our previous courses to this course, it really came together as to, we were learning about sustainable futures and creativity and being that adaptive leader. So putting this, really thinking about what a leader can do to provide those free spaces. We called it the hole in the wall, right? Really giving our students opportunities to learn kind of anywhere, right? Just not a desk and a table. So I think for me, it just flowed very well, just all the content that we have been learning and how an adaptive leader can really, force that creativity and change the systems. Since, education really is changing, and we need more than just paper and pencil and a desk nowadays.
So then what I want you, to kind of migrate towards then, and I've heard some comments about this beforehand, what did you learn then really from working in a team environment from that process? And I guess actually, Adam, you probably could start that one off from your comment you made in the beginning.
Sure. Before everyone joined in, you mean? Well, I think what I learned, and it's not necessarily something I didn't already know, but what I had to really keep in the foreview is to be considerate of everyone else in the group. What I mean is, and that's a lot of that is communication. You can't assume people know what you're thinking. You have to, okay, so this is my example, so if you're saying, if I understand you correctly, you're saying this, it's just those kind of steps in communication that keep things kind of open and transparent and clear, rather than people sort of developing their own mental models as you're working. But Jacinta, I apologize. You may not want me to say anything on this, but I feel like this was a moment we had where Jacinta, by nature, is a kind of an organizer. I would call you you were the Hannibal of the A team. You had the plan coming together, and you made it come together. She did a lot of the administration, and if the rest of the team sort of doesn't, I'm not going to say recognize that, but do their parts as well, then it becomes very frustrating for the person who's doing kind of the administration. There was one moment I saw because it was late, we were lazy, we didn't bring what we needed to the meeting and all, and she had prepared, and it just made me, it snapped me back. Got to be considerate, and everyone's got to do their part, and everyone did, in the end.
Okay.
Well, what I learned from this, this project enabled us to put it to practice, to practicalize what we learned in 800 that talks about collective intelligence.
Mm.
And then also we're able to apply Otto Scharmer's social technology, open mind, open heart, open will. So we're able to apply it, and we can see real time, and it's so exciting. Yeah.
Okay, good.
I think for me, just to go off of Adam, what I kind of learned is, you have to be really open, right? And that goes to Otto Schermer's, keeping that open mind and being open to everyone's working styles. So I think that was really big for me, just making sure I'm open to everyone.
Okay.
Yeah, I would agree with that, because when we first met in the very beginning of the term, we had like 3 really good ideas, and then we had left. I'd missed one of the meetings, and then when we came back, the idea had completely changed into something else. So I was really surprised, and it took me about 2 more weeks to really accept that we had completely changed to something else, and it actually turned out so much better than what we had originally planned, that when I finally saw it, and it just kind of clicked, and I saw what everybody else was seeing, it really, for me, that was a moment of letting go, because I had to let go, because I was really married to that idea that we had come up with in the first week, and then 2 weeks later it was completely different, and I had no idea what was going on because I had missed the.
Well, I can remember.
For me, letting.
Okay, I'm sorry, Andrew.
Go really seeing. What?
No, go ahead. I didn't know you were finished. Go ahead.
I think we're having communication issues, Andrew.
Yes.
No, I'm not.
He might be frozen.
Yeah.
No, he's okay. Yeah.
I'm done.
George, you can go ahead, George.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. We can. I think, was that Andrew again?
No.
Go, George.
Okay.
I'm frozen. Am I frozen? Can you see me?
No, you're okay.
You're okay now. Yeah, you're
You're
okay.
back.
Okay, now.
You're fine.
I can hear you. So, but go ahead, George. I was done.
Okay, so what's interesting is this project, the beginning part of this project was something that I had proposed in 802, and it got absolutely no traction with my original team. Andrew was on that team with me. And so, I mean, pieces of it. Obviously, it went a whole different level. And then when we came together in our group here, it went to a totally different level that I never even imagined because of the collection of the 6 of us. It just went, it was one thing led to, I mean, once the ideas came together in the very beginning of our process, it just continued to go and became very logical. Like we can, I mean, I can't speak for others, but I can see this thing actually happening and being very real. And if you look at the overall presentation, you can see our personalities throughout it, which is kind of interesting. I go back to 802 as I had this certain creative, ambitious plan, and I wasn't even remotely close to where the team had taken it in 801, which was intriguing.
Yeah, and if you remember, what I did was I mixed the teams up this time.
Yes.
Of 802.
Oh, I know that. I saw that.
Yeah.
But you can definitely see
Yeah.
like some of our work from what we've done before. So
Yes.
like I think with Benita and I, we were really keen on technology and integrating that into the classroom. Like you see that all throughout our project as well here.
Well, and also Jacinta's frustration with the way the system is currently, as far as how education is, you sense the frustration with how we do things today and what we really need to do. And that was evident through the entire project of how do we, it's not even getting rid of the frustration, it's looking forward to what we can do, what's possible.
So tell me then how leadership functioned within your group.
To be honest, coming from, I guess, because I was more of the organizer of things, I think beyond me being the organizer, I think we each played an equal part to leadership. I think we were very fair with each other. We listened to each other. We kind of voted on ideas. It reminds me of, instead of, if you think back to the round table, King Arthur's round table, it was more of that where everyone was equal than anything else.
Okay. All
I
right.
mean, I would agree that there was a level of equality that went through all of us, and each one of us kind of spearheaded a section, and we were the leader of that section. But I would go ahead and say it wasn't really that Jacinta was the organizer. I think that she really took the team lead on this, and then everybody else, we didn't just follow, but it was really a delegation of the section to lead. So each one of us had an opportunity to really kind of say, this is what we want to do, and this is how we're going to do it. And then the main organization, I would say that Jacinta was by far the lead on this project.
So there was distributed leadership throughout the team.
Yeah.
That's what I feel. Yeah, I feel like, I mean, because everybody had their part and everybody was in charge of their part and everyone had autonomy over that part. But I think when it came to the organization of keeping everything flowing, we did share a little bit, but I think that, Jacinta definitely spearheaded that one.
Yeah. If you look at,
it's nice.
Yeah, if you look at, Jacinta and she took the meeting notes and whatever the next action was going to be, she would list what the action items were, but there weren't people assigned to them necessarily. And what was nice about it was each one of us, so we look at the list, there were 900 items on it. I just remember the list being really long. And it went on and on and on and on. But it wasn't where people were, like our team was avoiding any of the tasks. We literally pounced on the list and we took things to go work on and then ran with it. But it all comes from a united core though. And I think that's the important piece here was I never felt, from my standpoint, I never felt that we were really disconnected on anything once we came together in the very beginning. We just ran with it there, and it's almost like we each had our purpose, and the purpose wasn't necessarily defined, George, you go do this, Benita, you go do this. It was, it's almost as if we defined our own purpose and went in, but we're never losing sight of a shared interest. It was really, I got to tell you, I've worked in a lot of teams in my life. This was an unbelievably awesome experience.
What I thought was interesting is that everyone seemed to bring something different to the table.
Exactly.
When George, you missed like 2 or 3 meetings, and then I was like, I'm having George anxiety because of the thing you bring to the table. I meant that.
And I think I agreed with you, Adam. I was like, I miss George. Where's George? And we finally got him, though. We even got him on WhatsApp. We got him chatting with us now. He loves us just as much. I think as a group, we came together very well. And it's a lot different than the other teams that we've worked on. So we've been in teams all throughout this experience so far as doctoral students. And this was an amazing group. One that, I could work with again anytime. Like I think it was Andrew earlier who said, like, hopefully we get picked for Otto Strummer and we can just all move to New York and just work on this together and that be our life. Like, and I would so be in for that because we did a good job working together and we were patient with each other. And I think that that's really important too. Like, there were times that maybe like you could see that I was frustrated physically, but I think that mentally, even for myself, that I was patient with myself and with others, and that they were even patient with me in times that I would get frustrated and understand, like, okay, maybe we need to get on the ball.
Sure, Jacinta, it wasn't times, it was one time.
Okay.
One time. Honestly, because I think everyone was being very sensitive to each other. Also, I can only speak for myself, but I don't think anyone felt like the burden fell on them. I know I didn't feel like, oh, this is like I'm carrying all the weight. When you end up doing all the work, you feel like resentful. I know I didn't, because I didn't feel like I was doing everything. I felt like it was dispersed, and that was good. I thought everyone pulled their part, and sometimes people surprised me too with like documents they submitted. I was like, holy cow, this is great. It was out of nowhere, and because of that, you never felt like you were alone in any way.
And then even piggybacking on our strengths, like Adam and I think we're really good when it comes to like the digital components of things and putting together the videos. And like, we would even go back and forth and work just in a cluster with us two and say, okay, what do you think about this? And then we'd roll it out to the group and have our group vote on things. And I think our different relationships with each other were really important in this aspect as well.
Jacinta's a good litmus test for, I'm sorry, last thing I'm saying, she's a good litmus test for the school is a prison environment, it's like, is this prison like, because she has her finger on the pulse of that, and that was helpful.
Yeah, that's my thing, I guess.
Well, I thank God that we all know we're experiencing Otoshama. We crossed the threshold to the other side of you, where we can co-create, co-initiate, co-create.
So, all right, then thinking about the co-creation, and the question I like you to kind of think about now is as you think about how your team functioned, how the content came together, what was going on with your understanding of that relationship between creativity and leadership? What did you learn about that in terms of this project?
Well, I can only talk about it from a reflective standpoint because I got to be honest with you, I wasn't thinking about leadership as we were going through the creative process. I was thinking about how we can participate in making, well, our mission of the self-sustaining individual, but doing things that are the right things to do in education to help children lead the future and be able to function in what this world is going to look like in its constant evolution. Afterwards, you start looking at it, and based on the comments, you learn a lot about, there's certain techniques that you used in the process that you weren't aware of. There's for example, I'll talk about listening. I'll talk about just being able to understand what others are thinking about. And normally, so I'm in higher education, the first thing you think about here when you talk about mental models is you're looking at the motivation of the individuals you're surrounded by and what's in it for them. Why are they thinking of the things they're thinking? So I come into here where I am now skeptical. With my team, I never came in with that mindset at all, just because of where we were at the very beginning. But I would have never thought of that at the beginning of the project. See what I'm saying? So it wasn't as if I was thinking about leadership according to any of the authors. I was thinking about the creativity as the project first and connecting to something bigger than us.
In addition to crystallize that, creativity always helps to empower everyone in the team. Creativity will help to empower everyone to play leadership role. Just like Andrew said, we have different assignments that we handled autonomously. We were given autonomy to handle something, but we were able to cross-function. And then this creativity empowered everyone to play leadership role. So as you said, there's that shared leadership, there's distributed leadership within the team.
Good. Okay. Other thoughts about this?
I can agree that with George that creativity was at the top of our list and not leadership. I think with us wanting to create the self-sustainable individual and creativity being, I guess, the pinnacle of our program, I think we were striving to just be just as creative as what we would want our end product to be.
So thinking about what George said, from a point of view of reflectiveness, and you think about Puccio, what was in Puccio's book, understanding that relationship between divergent and convergent thinking, and that what a leader then needs to do as they understand the complexity of those two ways of thinking, how do you think it will influence your leadership within your own environments as it relates to creative problem solving or trying to foster an innovative approach to dealing with a problem?
I think it's awareness. If I looked at I had to pick a word, it would be awareness. I'm much, much more aware of each individual's interests, the importance of their comments, the institution in which I operate. There's things I just did because of experience. Mm-hmm. And I didn't have, was there an awareness? Probably. But now I'm very much aware. And as I was saying to Dr. Ken last term, I felt I was destroyed because now I'm very well aware of a lot of things around me I wasn't aware of before. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. But I can tell you as part of the leadership process here with the 3 courses, I have I'm just so much more aware of things, and it works. I mean, there are things in working with my team that I could tell you, a year ago before I started this process, would I have looked at things differently? And the answer is absolutely yes. Okay. And now taking a step back, because usually my style has been a little more on the front end of things, but taking a step back and listening to other individuals, when I was in 802, that was a bit of a challenge for me. But that worked out beautifully because the awareness came in, and then 801 really allowed it to go to a different level. Not to say there's not much work, as I told you earlier, Dr. Poole, that my 10 phases of innovation, the weakness was the team side. So, but I am much more aware of it and understand what people care about. But again, never losing sight of the big picture, which in our case has always been about what the future looks like.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
So that means as a leader, That means, for creativity to be fostered, we need to allow divergent thinking instead of convergent thinking in any learning or work environment.
Okay. So with that then, the last question I'm going to pose to you then is really, what did you discover about your blind spots as it relates to your leadership development? Because remember, one of the important things related to Sharmer is unearthing our blind spots. And so I'm curious that as you think through this process, and I think from some of your previous comments, you touched on some of these things, but I'm curious now, if I really get you to focus on this, what did you really discover through the 10 weeks here about your own blind spots in relationship to your leadership development?
Personally, I think autonomy is really important. And I think we looked past the blind spot with that when we allowed ourselves to have that autonomous aspect in our project where we didn't assign things to each other. We kind of chose what we wanted to do. And I think moving forward for myself and my own leadership development, that's something that's extremely important for me, to have autonomy. And I don't think that I personally have that in my current, I guess, work situation, where I can be as creative as I need to be in order to, I guess, get my students to where they need to be.
Okay. Good.
Well, one of the things I learned is that even areas that I think that areas of my strength, as you allow other members of the team to critique those areas of strength and let go and let come something better, than what I think that I know or maybe I'm very good at.
Okay.
I think one of my blind spots that I kind of learned and, moving forward is really just letting go and being open to ideas. And I think that's one thing I'm learning in my current role as a leader, that, I don't have the flexibility to some things. So it's okay. I can step back and really try to understand some things and really being open to other ideas.
So how would you, let me just ask a question of you then as you understand that blind spot, as you're perceiving it right now, have you, or can you think of some strategies that you might incorporate within your own current reality to overcome that blind spot?
I mean, really just being open, right? Being open, trying to get the other person's point of view, maybe trying to work around it. So currently in my role, it's an organization with 10 centers. So they have rules and set in place. So, most of the times what happens is you kind of have to go with what's there. So maybe really just trying to understand where things are coming from before kind of trying to change things.
Okay.
So I think for me, that's a big thing.
Okay.
I think when thinking about this question in our current role, one of the blind spots that I've been struggling with is letting go of the idea that there's the cultural barrier in place that prevents students from being able to use autonomy in the classroom. I think in the last term I mentioned that I was trying to flip my economics class where students are actually teaching everything in the class. And we've done that, but when I had my parents meetings and I explained to the parents that what we're doing, one of the parents had stood up and asked my vice principal, well, I do group work in class and it doesn't work. The China group doesn't work. That's what she said, and she's been a teacher here for a long time, and it made me think about the Young Zhao videos about how China is pulling away from this factory-style learning environment and becoming more towards the creative side. And for me, it starts to see that maybe the culture here, we can't apply these Western teaching styles in the culture here, but I've done it, and for the most part, it works. But sometimes it gets really boring because these kids are really geared towards this is the way a class should be, and they're going to lecture at us as opposed to run the activities that they're supposed to be doing. So it's a rough road, but at least this is the pilot of the class that we're going to do, and it's making me feel like they can't do it, but it's also making me feel like if I push a little harder, if I demo it a little more, they really do have that ability to generate these really exciting, really student-centered, engaging classes to teach themselves economics.
Okay.
I think it's important. It's important to understand your role. I always, in the entrepreneurship program here at Suffolk, I always thought that the fact that I was building these things was the reason why we were getting resources, and so it's measured on success, which that'd be a typical mental model for a higher education institution. But when I took a step back and looked at why the program was so successful, I realized that it was more of talking to other people and finding out they loved being part of the innovative space, and they loved to bring creativity to life through an entrepreneurial mindset. We're talking about, coming out of science and theater and other liberal arts areas, and English and sociology and all these areas, where when we were doing our creative and innovation graduation requirement, all of a sudden there were these individuals our faculty they wanted to do something different. And my role changed. And again, this is something I noticed afterwards. I was more of a facilitator. So because I had knowledge of what creative and innovation was in the university based on how we defined it in our business school, the reality was there was an incredible amount of interest in what was going on, but our faculty had no idea how to break down what they saw as perceived barriers. Mm-hmm. And in the end, just by teaming up with them and leveraging some of the things that we had internally, it opened this floodgates, which led to monumental growth being in the creative mindset of our students, which growth, and we're defining as being interest in our undergraduate students, which 3 years ago didn't exist, which is pretty exciting. So when people talk about the success of entrepreneurship here, while they like to throw my name in the equation, I said, look, it's everybody else's ideas. I'm just getting away some of the clogs in the artery, which is what I do, and it's the faculty and their interests that really drive all of this and that energy. And obviously the students support all that because they're the ones in the end that make us energetic.
Yeah, and I think, as you think about this and going forward, and as you move away from this course, and you, as I said, you go into some of your concentrations, and then you're going to spend a lot of time, with your research courses now, that the more you do that deeper dive into reflecting back on these experiences, that idea of surfacing the blind spots. So you can use, obviously, the 10 phases of innovation. As again, that's just the self-analysis based upon a person who's had quite a bit of time, Kelly, working with entrepreneurs with both the D School and also with IDEO, that, he said these are the types of things that we notice that emerge with design studios, the students in these, and entrepreneurs. So they give you a set of lenses to think about, the complexity of change that we're all faced with. So again, when I look at your academy, and as I said to you, the first thing that really jumped out to me was your use of the PICs as really demonstrating the depth of thinking that the team pulled out. I think that's good. But a lot of people, and I'll say this from an academic point of view, would not see that as academically sound. But in reality, if you showed this, and this video will go out, it's going to go to the Presencing Institute because they're going to start looking at education now, as an example of this, that our blind spot in education many times is that is still that category between academic and vocational. and that academic is considered better and vocational is kind of, it's for, the working class. And the sad thing about it is it's not. It's a combination of both. And the more we think about this, and when I look at your project, and I look at the pictures of the I'll say the work world interacting within your learning spaces, that's where we should be going, and it's really there. But again, the more you can think about and identifying what your blind spots are as you're letting go to let come in new ideas, and then teach and nurture other people to find theirs, your leadership style is really going to blossom. I think that's very important, for you to think about. So are there any other comments, from the team that you want to give me as it relates to the process, et cetera? I think listening to you, I'm getting a lot of ideas about going forward. I am going to share this video with, I'm up for, it's kind of interesting. I'm up for getting a full clinical professorship, and I am going to use some of the clips out of this video saying, look, here's the types of things that I'm creating in the learning spaces, and here's how students are reacting to it. And so I think these things are important. And I also think you guys should use some of this stuff even in your own environments, and talk about this and to nurture it. So anything else for me? Or other comments that you have?
Yeah, I think one of my aha moments in this whole project, earlier on, when we weren't going to call students or teachers, I sort of, I felt that was kind of stupid. I was like, what is the point? So we call it a student, call it a learner, call it an empty vessel. Like, what's the difference? It's just a word. We know what we're talking about. And but then later, I sort of I embraced it. I wasn't gonna. I didn't want to not do it. So, but I kind of see now how by letting go of even those terms, you start with something new. Then you have to kind of create it all yourself. You're not carrying anything over because a student is supposed to do this and this and this. We got rid of all that, even getting rid of the terms. So that was one of my, I don't know if that was a blind spot or just a hurdle or something I had to unmarry to, but that was definitely a step moment for me.
Yeah, and that's an excellent point.
Let it go.
Yeah, that was you letting go and letting come, Adam.
That's what it is.
Adam doesn't know these terms because he wasn't in the other courses. So
right.
That's the process you went through.
But, something, Adam, you're bringing up that I think is extremely important for all of you to think about is, and if you go back to Senge and his concepts around the mental models that we carry in our heads, I always look at it that one of the reasons we are not able to move forward in coming up with the types of models that you're creating here is that we are victims of the metaphors that we carry in our heads. And that, remember, our educational system is still influenced by the 17th century, and that is Descartes and it's Galileo. When Galileo looked at the universe in the solar system, basically, is nothing more than a machine, and it's a clockwork. And when Descartes separated the mind from the body by, I think, therefore I am, and you think about Scharmer with the idea of open mind, open heart, and open will, that what we're trying to do is bring these things together. So you look at the metaphor of the machine, and what that led up to from the Industrial Revolution is that separation of academic and vocational. So we tracked off of that way. But if we began to, and I liked your metaphor of how you looked at students and looked at the learning facilitator within your school. So for example, if you thought of schools not so much as factories, but if you thought of schools as seed beds and kids as seeds, how would that change your thinking? So what I'm saying to you, Adam, particularly, you know, and actually for all of you, is that, yeah, the words we do use are extremely important because it's that ladder of inference. It's the meanings from our own personal experiences that we put onto these things, that we need to shift the metaphors that we're using about any organization that we're in. So, you know, I think that's something I hope, you know, that you're learning from this process.
Absolutely. I think George started using the term incubators in our program, and I kept thinking like, oh, hatching eggs, because we did that at my house. We're like hatching these little baby chicks in our incubators. But yes,
yeah,
it was different mental model came out though.
Yeah, yeah. And that's it. And what you need to do is, even with your own organizations, and if you're a classroom teacher, you actually got to do this with kids to get them to expose what their mental models are as it relates to what learning is. You know, it goes back to young Zhao's point of view of you know, tapping into listening to what their sense of the world is and where their interests lie, and then creating environments that allow that to happen. And I actually think your Freedom Academy attempts to do that. So you should be quite proud of what you've been generating so far.
Well, I think just a couple of quick comments. One is we looked at, we actually cringed if we used some of the standard terminology, like taxonomy was a painful word, but we're trying to make a point. And other words like even curriculum, just we'll use more of the established terms. But we looked at vocations and professions being the same. We couldn't see a reason to separate.
Mm-hmm.
We saw maker spaces as ways of bridging gaps between traditional and special education students.
Yeah.
We saw promotion being something that is tied to accomplishment versus some type of quantitative assessment. And these came together over time. The more we talked about them, the more we threw a lot of the whatever the remnants were of some of the terminology that was being used. But the other part too, and from my standpoint, a big chunk of motivation was looking at the other presentations, 802 presentations. The first draft, it gave me a look and feel of what we currently have. And I couldn't get beyond, so this is the mental model, right? I couldn't get beyond the fact that, well, is that the same as what we have without reading the words?
Right. And
then once you read the words, you obviously see there's significant differences versus what we have today. But when I was looking at this, as our team was talking, I couldn't get beyond that visual.
Yeah.
Of it's got to be different. It's got to look different. It's got to feel different. But it's got to be real at the same time. And the only way to break those barriers down, and I think collectively as a team we thought this way, was that we couldn't look like what currently exists.
Yeah.
And I think something that's also important is that we reminded each other of that. Like we would get stuck on those terms only because they're what we use now. But I think the constant reminder, okay, we can't do that. We have to be different. We have to let go of that, I think was really important. Yeah. Specifically, even with how we grouped our phases of progression, and like we molded it to an age group, but we said, you know, it doesn't have to be that way, because if a kid can phase out of that, then let that kid go. Don't keep that kid stuck in the box because of an age group or a grade level.
Right. That's cool.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so what I want to do is I'm going to show you, just kind of share with you a short little video that I always find very interesting, particularly around the concept of creativity. And mute your own microphone so you don't get any feedback from this. You should be able to hear it quite well. And then we're going to end after I show you this video.
What is the most astounding fact you can share with us about the universe?
Well, I guess it's putting, here we go. There we go.
What is the most astounding fact you can share with us about the universe? The most astounding fact. The most astounding fact is the knowledge that the atoms that comprise life on Earth, the atoms that make up the human body, are traceable to the crucibles that cooked light elements into heavy elements in their core under extreme temperatures and pressures. These stars, the high mass ones among them, went unstable in their later years. They collapsed and then exploded, scattering their enriched guts across the galaxy. Guts made of carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, and all the fundamental ingredients of life itself. These ingredients become part of gas clouds that condense, collapse, form the next generation of solar systems, stars with orbiting planets. And those planets now have the ingredients for life itself. So that when I look up at the night sky, and I know that, yes, we are part of this universe, we are in this universe, but perhaps more important than both of those facts is that the universe is in us. When I reflect on that fact, I look up. Many people feel small because they're small and the universe is big, but I feel big because my atoms came from those stars. There's a level of connectivity. That's really what you want in life. You want to feel connected. You want to feel relevant. You want to feel like you're a participant in the goings-on of activities and events around you. That's precisely what we are, just by being alive.
So with that, I basically want to say it was a pleasure working with you guys for the last couple of quarters. And hopefully I might be interacting with you in some quarters down the road or on dissertation committees, etc. And I do also want to wish you, your loved ones, your families, a phenomenal break and holiday season.
Same to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You too.
Okay. And then just look.
Merry Christmas to you too, Dr. Gold.
Thank you. So, and then just look for my comments. I'll be sending out an audio file to you guys on my reactions to your Freedom Academy, the non-jailed school.
Exactly.
All right. So good night and enjoy your time off.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night, everyone.
Night.
Yeah.